A few years ago, my wife started having night terrors. Every night, she would wake up to find a black, ooze-like figure standing directly over her in our bed. It would hover there for a few moments, making her panic, before it slowly dissolved away. She thought it was just her brain playing tricks on her, typical sleep paralysis stuff. She doesn't really believe in anything paranormal, and honestly, neither do I. But after several months of this happening every single night, I started to wonder if there might be more to it. Normally, I'm pretty scared of the dark myself. Scary movies terrify me. After I saw The Ring for the first time, I could barely sleep for days. But seeing my poor wife scared and desperate for a good night's sleep pushed me past my usual fear. I was just so angry. Angry at whatever was tormenting her, whether it was real or not. One night, I decided to do something about it. I told my wife to switch sides of the bed with me. She didn't object, and we went to sleep. As I lay there, trying to fall asleep, I kept repeating the same thought over and over in my mind, almost like a mantra: "Bring it, you son of a bitch. Bring it, you son of a bitch." I was determined to confront whatever it was, even if it was just in my head. At some point in the night, I woke up from a super deep sleep, jolted awake because I sensed something standing directly over me. My heart was pounding, and I could barely breathe. I looked up and saw it, a shape that was sort of human-like but blobby, like a dark spill that roughly resembled the outline of a person. It gave off this horrible, negative energy. It was like I could feel this sense of wrongness emanating from it, not physically, but emotionally. I just snapped. I was still half asleep, but I felt this overwhelming surge of anger and protectiveness. I didn't scream or shout, but in my mind, I mentally lashed out at it. I sent out a powerful, wordless message of "Get the fuck out of my house and stay away from my wife or I will end you." I felt so justified and vengeful, like I was drawing on all the stress and fear from the past few months. And then, just like that, the figure started to fade. It melted away into the darkness as I woke up completely. My heart was racing, but I wasn't scared. In fact, I felt strangely calm. I lay there for a moment, listening to the silence, before I drifted back to sleep. That was the last night my wife ever had a night terror. It's been about 2 years now, and she hasn't seen the black figures since. It's one of the weirdest experiences I've ever had. I know it's nothing conclusive, but it makes me raise an eyebrow whenever I think about it. Did I actually drive away some kind of dark presence, or was it all just a bizarre coincidence? I guess I'll never really know, but I'm glad whatever it was, it's gone. This experience I'm about to share scared the shit out of me. It happened almost 8 years ago when I was 20, and sometimes I still wonder just what the hell was going on. My best friend and I were in a bind and needed a place to move into fast. We found this basement apartment close to downtown. It was a total shithole, but it was a 2-bedroom for $650 a month, which made it worth it for a while until we found a better place. A few days after moving in, I started having really bad nightmares. I'd wake up terrified, but I could never remember what I had dreamed about. After about a week of this, every time I was in my room, I felt like someone was going to bust through my wall and kill me. It didn't help that the landlord had a storage space on the other side of my bedroom wall that he could access whenever he wanted. It got so bad that my friend, who had a room that was more like a closet, moved into my room with me just so I wouldn't be alone. I also started noticing weird things when I took the dog out into the backyard at night. It always looked like someone from the top floor of the house was watching me. My roommate noticed this too when she came out with me. It was just this unsettling feeling, like we were being observed by someone, or something, that we couldn't see. We had a mutual guy friend who we had met through, and the three of us hung out all the time. He stayed over frequently, which made things a little less creepy. One night, we were all out, and after, he decided to go home. My roommate and I stayed up for a few hours, and around 3 a.m., we realized we should probably take the dog out one last time before going to bed. I had the dog on a leash to make sure she wouldn't give me any trouble when I wanted to bring her back in. As I stood by the door, I started to see shadows. They looked like people walking towards me and my roommate, just out of the corner of my eye. I don't know what came over me, but I suddenly screamed, "Get in the house." My roommate looked at me like I was crazy and said, "What the fuck?" or something like that, but we both grabbed the dog and booked it inside. When we got to the bottom of the stairs, we both froze. There, peering into the shitty little windows we had, were two red eyes. They just stared at us, glowing in the darkness. I lost it. I screamed my face off, yelling for our friend who had gone home earlier. My roommate's cell phone rang, and it was our buddy. He said he had a feeling he should call, and he asked if we were okay. We told him to get his ass over to our house immediately. He came over and stayed with us for almost every night for the next 2 weeks until we could move the hell out of there. Even after he showed up, we couldn't shake the feeling of being watched, and those red eyes kept haunting us. I don't know why, but my roommate and I always felt like the landlord or someone from upstairs had something to do with our uneasy feelings. There was just something off about that whole place, like it was hiding secrets we were better off not knowing. Make of this story what you will, but it scared the ever-living crap out of me. 8 years later, I still get the heebie-jeebies whenever I happen to pass that house on the streetcar. I haven't been back since we moved out, and I don't plan to either. Whatever was going on in that basement apartment, I'm glad I don't have to deal with it anymore. My junior year of college, I moved into a large, old house with 4 other people on the first floor, 5 on the second, and 2 more upstairs who we didn't really talk to. The house was ancient but seemed normal enough, at least at first. Then I went down to the basement for the first time. There was a washing machine and dryer down there that never worked, so we didn't have much reason to go down except for parties. The basement was typical, dark, musty, and cluttered with random stuff. But there was one part that always creeped me out, a room towards the back of the basement that was always locked. Just being near it gave me an overwhelming sense of fear. Apparently, when my roommates first moved in, that room wasn't locked. One of the girls was exploring the basement and decided to check out the room. She found several human teeth and what she described as strange tools inside. Not long after that, the landlord, who had only recently bought the house, locked the door and it was never opened again. Fast forward a few months. I had recently woken up from a nap and was cooking some food on the stove. I was the only person on our floor at the time. Suddenly, the hallway light to my left flickered and then turned off. I shrugged it off, assuming the bulb had burnt out. Then it turned back on. The switch for that light was in the stairwell on the other side of a closed door, so I waited a minute, thinking maybe someone was messing with me. The light turned off again. I quickly ran over to the door and opened it, expecting to catch someone in the act. But there was no one there. I walked downstairs to the first floor and found no one there either. Now, I was a little freaked out, but I still tried to convince myself it was just an electrical problem. I went back to my food, trying to ignore the unease creeping over me. That's when the light went on and off again. I stood there, frozen, my heart pounding. Then, music started playing. It was coming from the living room, which was right next to the kitchen. Feeling relieved, thinking that maybe someone was home after all, I walked into the living room. There, on a ledge near the window, was a closed laptop connected to some speakers, and the television was tuned to one of those static channels, like in the horror movies. I approached the speakers, thinking someone must have left their music on. But the laptop wasn't even on. I unplugged the speakers, and the music stopped. I wish I could remember what song it was, but my mind was racing with other thoughts. The chill of realization sunk in. I turned off the stove, walked down the stairs, got in my car, and drove away as fast as I could. A few weeks later, I finally told my roommates what had happened, hoping that someone would admit to pulling a very elaborate prank. Instead, everyone got kinda quiet. One by one, they started admitting to strange things that had happened to them. One of the girls said she would often wake up in the middle of the night to hear noises coming from her closet. Sometimes, the hangers would be swaying as if something had just brushed past them. Another friend said he often heard footsteps above him when no one was home. Then another guy shared that he had woken up in the middle of the night to see a dark figure standing in the kitchen, staring into his room. It stayed there for a moment before walking back toward the stairwell. We never did figure out what was going on in that house, but after hearing everyone else's experiences, I knew I hadn't imagined what happened. Whatever was going on in that house, it wasn't just a faulty light bulb or someone playing a prank. There was something more, something none of us could explain. We all started looking for new places to live after that. No one wanted to stick around to find out what else the house had in store for us. To this day, I still get the chills thinking about that locked room in the basement and what might have been hidden in there.